Okay. I just hit, let me see, I should turn it a little bit. I just hit go live, so I'm just gonna dive right into it. If you can see me and hear me, I would love to know from you if you can let me know in the chat, in the comments, just so that I know that you can hear me all right. This is the first time that I am streaming from this room that I'm in now. So I just need to know that it's all going okay and that you can hear me clearly. And also, of course, that you can see something. We've got here in front of us the July design. Oh, Risa, she answers yes. Okay, fantastic. I'm always a little bit nervous whenever I start a stream because as I do not see the YouTube in front of me, I can't really see it how it's working. Angela as well, you are live and great. Fantastic. Okay, whew, the first breathe out. I'm not only a little bit nervous for the fact of the technology working all right, but I'm actually feeling a little bit nervous because it's been a while since I was doing a live stream and yeah, I guess that makes you a little bit nervous, but it's a good nervous. All right. And I'm so excited to see a few of you here. And perhaps some of you have already watched a live stream from me before in the past. I believe it's already a whole year ago, which is mind blowing to me. A whole baby ago. Our second baby is now 4 months already, which also is crazy. But for you, those of you who receive our emails, you know that I decided to just go live because there is no better way than to make yourself publicly accountable, held accountable when you need to kickstart a new habit. And I was having a really hard time getting back into creating. It's been a turbulent year, if we put it that way. I'm not going to go into details here, but I want to just use this moment as a way to just share the process of getting back into creativity. And I thought, what better way than to show what I'm working on, which means that I have to be creating something, right? In case there is anybody else here in a similar boat, welcome, welcome. Life is overwhelming sometimes, and that is okay. It doesn't mean that we cannot get back on our feet and get creative again. Actually, one of the main reasons why we got so passionate, when I say we, I refer to my husband and I, Charles, is because to create with your hands is actually probably one of the most relaxing things, and it really helps you feel so much better when you are having a creative project at hand, when you are feeling that you're making progress. So I need to remind myself of that sometimes too. And again, I invite you as well to pick up a pen, a paper, your fabric, your floss, if you've got an embroidery project going on, whatever you have, just so that you can sit and create along with me. Today is not going to be a super fancy workshop. We are here together for about 30 minutes. If you do have any questions throughout, just don't hesitate to put it in the chat box. I'm seeing now some more messages. I can see and hear you all the way from Australia. Exciting. What time is it in Australia right now? I have no idea. I just know that it's on the other side of the world. Marilyn says hi. Nicolina, ciao. And Joaquin in Swedish, I don't know how I would say that. Jacqueline, maybe, from Chile is also here. I'm so humbled to have you here with me. So let's dive in. I wanted to show you, actually, this is the pattern of July. So the pattern program, you guys, is what has kept me sane, despite feeling like I have not really been doing much. Okay, I've been raising my babies, but even if I felt like I fell out of a creative habit, I was still doing the pattern of the month. So that is the great thing of at least having one such public project, or just this kind of regular thing that, you know, there's one design per month. And this is the design that I just drew out for July that is coming. If you are watching this when it is July already, because we will be leaving, I plan to leave up the replay. Head over to Charles & Ellen Academy, come join us, and you're able to download yours. If you're already part of the membership, well, just head over and download it right away. This is actually a building in the old part. Can you see this all right, or do you want me to zoom in a little bit? Let me know about that as well so that I can start getting a hang of the settings. But this is actually a really, really cute little typical building, Nordic building in the old part of Malmö, which is not too far away from where I grew up. And I just thought that it was fitting. I love, if you've followed along for the past few years, it's been 7 years that we're doing Charles & Ellen now, which is also mind-blowing. But we love, I just absolutely adore these small buildings that are kind of nestled in between larger buildings or just various street scenes, because they really make you discover and explore a new place in another way. It makes it much more intimate, at least I find, than these maybe more typical, traditional, architectural, what's the word? Where you go a sightseeing spot. For example, let's say the Eiffel Tower. It's a very typical, it's something that you maybe should see at least once or something like that. To really get a feel for a place, a city, a village, whatever, I find that it's the small back streets that really give you that vibe. It brings that atmosphere of how the locals are living, how is the architecture really like. So that's just the backstory of actually this design. It's the old part of Malmö, which I think is very, very cute. And it's the typical cobblestone streets, which creates quite some texture in the design. But why did I choose to actually not go through this today with you? It's actually for this particular part here, because there's quite many layers here and it's a lot of depth without necessarily us thinking about it. So what do I mean? I'll try to hold it a little bit closer. What I mean is, if you really study this design, it's the same thing if you study a photograph many times. If I'm not actually at site, I'm using a photograph to base off my designs. And in case you are excited to do the same, we've got a full course on how to create your own embroidery design inside of the Academy as well, where I go into this in much more depth. But shortly, is to look at what are the different layers. What do you have in the background, so the most far away from you, and what do you have in the foreground, so the closest to you as you're standing watching this scene. First, in the furthest back, we've got the house, right? And what's in front of the house? Well, there is a tree that is growing here. Now, I believe it must be full of leaves, because this was kind of like early spring, so it wasn't too much yet. But there is a tree, and in front of that, you've got this bicycle, and you also have a little bicycle stand right in the middle, and then another bicycle. So this is kind of a cool effect where the wheels are overlapping, and I want to try to capture that in the embroidery as well. So how do you really capture depth in an embroidery? Think of the embroidery as you would with acrylic paint, for example. Acrylic paint is very covering when you're using it. So whatever is underneath is not going to really show through, unless you obviously separate the strands, right? If you separate the strands, you will be able to see what comes through, such as by the area of the wheels here. When you embroider, which is why it's important that you do things in that order of what is the furthest away from you, the background first, and then you add the layers after that, because then in those small areas where you might see through, such as here by the wheel, you will be able to see that this is a work well done. You've done all of the details. So that is what we are going to head over and do. I also need to finish up these roof tiles here, but my floss ran out, so I'll just attach that first and we'll head over. We'll head down actually to this area of the tree. Okay. Let's see. I thought that I'm gonna take this soft brown. It's not like it's more like a beige-ish color. And what I've done here is actually I have cut out my own bobbin. You don't have to buy these. You can actually buy a thick, rigid paper and cut out your own bobbins. It's a much cheaper way to do it if you've got lots of floss. So I try to do that as much as I can. We're going to use 2 strands. So to avoid them getting all tangled together, we'll pull them out one by one, or getting all messy. There we go, like this. The piece of floss that is left is very easy to just save on the side, and we can use that later, unless my oldest daughter finds it and start to play with it. She's starting to want to make her own little embroideries now, which I'm pretty excited about. I assembled these 2 single strands. So the main contours here, as typical, I love doing those in a single strand. It really makes the look and feel as if it's a drawing with ink. But as we're going to fill out now the stem of the tree, which we can hardly see in the transfer anymore, but in case this happens to you too sometimes, if you're transferring with carbon paper and you're a little bit slower, like I've been this month, the ink might start to fade away a little bit. Then it's a great idea to just keep the design around you, next to you, inside of your little project bag. Keep it next to you and you're always able to reference it. Look on the side and see, okay, it's approximately here, okay? And in this way, you're also actually adding a little bit of your own touch, because maybe it's not exactly in the same place, and that is okay. All right. I see there is some other languages going on, some Spanish, I believe. Thank you for helping me out, Marilyn. I do not speak Spanish. Maybe one day would be great. I speak some French. My daughter speaks French, and my husband speaks French. So I better speak some French. Okay. Now, let's see. I just made a little knot at one end. This is always a debate in the embroidery space, whether you should make a knot or not. I'm from more of the modern contemporary embroidery, where go ahead and do knot. I know that a lot of those who've done embroidery for a long time don't want to do knots. If you don't want to, don't do it. What I really want to encourage, and even more so in this new series of just get back your creativity and do it as a feel-good activity, I think it's so important to just sometimes not limit yourself with these different rules of how you have to do something. Look at everything that I'm showing you and explaining really just as a suggestion of how you can do it. Doesn't mean that this is the only way to do something. Not at all. This is just the way I do it. It's the way that one of the ways that we're teaching in our courses. And it's a way to try and see if it works for you as well. And if not, make adaptations, okay? That's what creativity is about. You find a way and you adjust it as you go. So I'm starting here right at the bottom. Okay, I'm starting right at the bottom behind these bicycles, because right, the tree is going the whole way. I want to make just some split stitches in the direction that I'm going. When it's about stem or plants in different ways, I think that the split stitch is just really, really great. It gives you the direction, and it doesn't have to be this perfectly neat line that a back stitch, single-stranded back stitch would give you. This is a little bit more just an interpretation. I also like to place, I'll maybe zoom in a little bit more. I also like to place a few split stitched lines next by to just thicken that a little bit, thicken the stem, going back and forth a little bit with that. So this is very much like the way I love to go about these kind of like details, because obviously the structures are a little bit more rigid in the sense we've got the house and these lines are a bit more neat. But when it's details such as the plants or a tree, I love to go just a little bit more freehand with it. So I'm thickening up this stem by aligning split stitched lines. Trying to read and embroider in the same time. That was difficult. I'll maybe read after. Please don't hesitate to let me know in the comments if you've got any question. You can also share where you're tuning in from. We've got some from Argentina, some Chile, bom dia, so maybe it's Portugal or Brazil. Charles and I were living in Portugal for a few months, or for the fall of, that was before we had kids. Suddenly you feel very old saying that. Now we've got two. It's just, yeah, feels crazy. What happened? We started in our little 18 square meters, so I don't really know what that is in American measurements, but square meter, a very tiny studio, rooftop studio in Paris. And now we're here. In Portugal. Well, welcome. Now we've got some French here. Bonjour, est-ce qu'il y aura des cours en français? Malheureusement, je ne parle pas très anglais. J'aimerais tellement apprendre à broder. Je ne sais pas encore. J'ai dit à Charles plusieurs fois que je pense que ça sera bien s'il pouvait faire des cours en français. Moi, je ne sais pas si mon français est assez bon pour ça, mais peut-être. Ok, peut-être. I'm from Israel. We've got from Brazil. Alabama, the US. Chile, yes. Italia, wow, we've got from all over. Love it. So all along, I'm just following. So as my trace, I just mentioned, my carbon paper trace has faded a bit for the tracing of this tree. I'm just watching on the side here and kind of placing it a bit roughly where I made it. That doesn't sound very professional, I guess, but it's really something that I find so important to just, yes, you can follow a pattern, but be free to add a couple of your own touches. Don't feel that you did a mistake if you didn't put the stitch in the exact same place. There are no mistakes. All right, this is about enjoying the process, enjoying creating. And I'm imagining that you're here with me today listening because you're enjoying to create as well. So I'm just going to stitch up this thread before, I'm not going to do the leaves just yet because I want to head over to this area to start just doing a couple of these stitches on top of the tree as well. Before we round off. It will be a little bit shorter live stream now in the beginning as my youngest still wants to have mommy all the time and wants to eat all the time. It felt the easiest to manage about a 30-minute stream, but if we notice that this works very well, and depending on the demand, if you want to have longer workshops as well, live stream workshops, we might extend it to an hour. We used to do an hour before. Everything that I'm showing as well, obviously I'm going into much more depth on it inside of the Academy with the courses that we've already got in there. Actually, this is taking a little bit more time, so I'll just pause that for a second. I'll continue that after and head over now to a bicycle. Let me see now. That means that I'm going to do the right-hand bicycle first, I believe. Is that the most furthest back? I'm not sure it really matters on the picture. I don't really remember which one was in the forefront. When you're doing the black on black like that, can sometimes be hard to see. So I'm starting out with a single-stranded black floss for the contours. I'm doing 2 knots at the end. Oh, just because I said that, I missed the last one. Typical. I'm going to make 2 knots at the end. Because with a single strand, it's very easy for it to go through the fabric otherwise. Now, what I'm going to do, and you can see this is where I know that a lot of people find this a little bit scary, is to stitch right on top of what you just did. This is what it's all about when you're layering your stitches, when you're building depth. The background, we didn't have to necessarily stitch it because it's a white wall. Then after that, we got the tree, and now we have this bicycle wheel layering on top of it. So I'm starting out just with back stitches to do the round wheel first. So there are a few traces left that helps me just with a rough sizing. I'm also taking use of the design just on my left-hand side next to me here. And after I've done this first wheel with a single strand, it's just to help me really with the placement. I'm able to go back and stitch with 2 strands on top of it to thicken the wheel, okay? When you're stitching round like this, the shorter your stitches, the better you can control the shape. So we've got a few questions here. Oh, also Marina from South Africa. That's amazing. I lived in South Africa for 1 year and I absolutely loved it. So I would really want to bring the family there if we are able to at some point. Where about in South Africa are you? And Ailem says, je l'espère tout cœur et vous parlez très bien le français. Merci. How old is your younger baby? My youngest baby is 4 months. And my oldest, she just turned 3. So she is very decisive with everything. Just like a 3-year-old should, isn't it? So now I start going over thickening it a little bit because frankly, why not? I already have a single strand. I already have a strand on my needle and I don't necessarily want to attach it just yet. I'll also go into the middle because these, I don't know what it's called in English, to be honest. These things that are inside of the wheel, I'll make a little French knot in the middle to just represent kind of like the center. I'll just do long, straight stitches, straight out from the middle. I'm able to fill out and make the wheel thicker later on with 2 strands. So don't think that I'm all done with that yet. It was just for me to know the placement. And as I have a single strand on my needle already, I might as well go ahead and do these interior details, internal wheel details, before we are rounding up for today. In Pretoria. That's cool. I've been to Pretoria once. I was running the Nelson Mandela Marathon, but before you think it was the marathon, I just did the 10-kilometer, the 10-kilometer version. So it wasn't a very impressive thing, maybe. I believe it was in Pretoria. Here, why do you use 2 strength? 2 strength, you mean 2 strands? 2 strands of floss. I only use 2 strands when I want to fill out a surface or make something that is a thicker line. It simply just saves me time to have 2 strands from the beginning. Nicolina asks, can you explain how to make flowers? Absolutely, I would love to do that. We've got multiple videos already here on YouTube, as well as, of course, in the Academy. I think that it's better to dedicate one workshop completely for that, but I'm more than happy to do it. I want to do these live streams quite frequently now to just really kickstart the creativity. And maybe if you're on summer holiday or something like that, winter holiday, maybe in South Africa and Australia, you can also get creative along with me. So I'm going back into the middle every time for these wheel details, but now my floss got too short, so I'll turn it over. I fish up some floss on the back, making a loop, and I pull it through. The lines in the wheel are called spokes. Perfect. I learn something every day. I realize now that I'm stitching here with you guys that I've actually really missed coming on live and be able to chat with you in real time. There's just something very special with it. Marilyn, I love having live sessions. Woohoo, fantastic. I'm planning to make, it's, what day of the week is it today? Is it the breastfeeding brain that is taking over? What day is it? It's Thursday, right? Thursday, I want to make already next week again. My idea was to really start working on a specific project dedicated to really dealing with stress, anxiety, getting out of depression, and those of you who've read my last emails know that this time around I've struggled a bit with some postpartum depression. Right now I'm all smiley, but it can be quite tough sometimes. And again, that's why creating is so great, because I feel how it's like energy is just coming back. So thank you so much for that, for giving that to me through the screen. So all of the spokes are finished on the first one. And I will continue with the contours of the rest of the bicycle. I'll do that in backstitch again, just a single strand to just kind of map out where the contours are going to go before I go over it again to thicken it a little bit. Personally, I love to go over same areas like multiple times to kind of thicken. The difference between, for example, embroidering 2 lines on top of each other versus just increasing the number of strands is that if you embroider multiple times on top of the same line, it also creates a little bit of a 3D impression or 3D volume, which is a really nice texture when you're touching it. So one of the things that for the past 7 years since we started out doing this, we've always considered it to be like a touchable drawing. So that when you're closing your eyes and you like kind of just pulling your finger across, you can feel what it is you're making. And that is something that I find very powerful. And by layering stitches, you're creating that added volume. So that, I hope that can answer a bit more of why I sometimes like to just do the contours in this way, the single strand, and then I'm layering on top of it. All right. I noticed there's already been 30 minutes. That went like that, super fast. I'm gonna just check quickly if there are some more questions before we're rounding off. I will leave this replay up so that you can watch it in case you missed the beginning or something. I'm not really sure of how it works when you're joining in late. But we've got more from here, more from South Africa, from Cape Town. Marilyn's asking, will there be a chance to watch the recording? Because of course I have the grandkiddies here and they're all over the place. I totally understand you with small kids around. Yes, I just answered that already. Anya, you are in Denmark. Well, I can almost wave to you. I'm in Sweden right now as I am recording this one. Kathy, so nice to see you here. You've been with us for a long time. From the UK, sorry I'm late, don't worry. I'll leave the replay up as I'm just rounding off now. If you have, do you have any questions regarding what I just showed you and the whole idea of layering and starting to stitch what is the most far away from you, what is really in the background, and then adding on top of that? Is there any questions around that? Or something else that you might notice around this? I'm very happy to do another video showing some more. This design is going into the Academy in the pattern program for July. Okay, the link to the Academy is just below. I'm opening up the doors just as we are finishing this, so you are able to join us again. There will, for a short period of time, be a 7-day free trial if you're joining us now. Someone is asking, do you know the embroidery called crewel? So crewel embroidery is actually very, very similar to what we are doing. This is more like a modern interpretation of it, but the needles that I'm using are actually called crewel embroidery needles. So I dare to say that it's quite similar, just that we have modernized some of the techniques, especially the way we combine stitches to create the different designs. We've also got from Holland here. Amazing. So that's it. That was 30 minutes already. Thank you so much for being here. Please, I'd love to hear your feedback if you want them to be a little bit longer or if this was a good format. Also, if you've got ideas for what you want me to talk about in these sessions, as I want to do a little bit more frequently, we can target more specific questions in the shorter sessions. And if there is no specific topic, I'll just show along what I'm currently working on, and I'll see if I'm starting to developing this more specific project for just feeling better. We'll see more about that. To get all the updates, as always, just come and join the email list and you will be the first to know. Thank you so much.